On one episode, he was singing, "If you're a traitor and you know it, clap your hands." Now, Michael knew he was wrong for singing that song, but seriously, can Michael not behave himself at all? Because, oh my god, this is too much.
Kay Unscripted, no teeth restricted. In this journey, watch our stories unfold.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Kay Unscripted. I am your girl Kay, and today we're going to be recapping the Traitors USA Season 4, Episode 5. Now, before we get into it, as always, we know we have to do all the courtesies, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more recaps like this one. Now, let's talk about what went down on this episode. So we left off on episode 4 with the traitors deliberating on who they're sending home. And as usual, we don't get to see it until breakfast time. So it's the next day and it's breakfast time. The first group that comes in is Natalie, Eric, Dorinda, and Candice. They get to talking about how they feel about Tiffany being sent home and how that kind of weighed on their minds. They didn't sleep good at all because they were thinking of Tiffany. Eric especially feels bad that it was his piece of evidence that sealed Tiffany's fate in being banished. They also talk about the continuous suspicion of Ron, and then we see the next group coming in. It's Colton, Kristen, Rob, and Mark. Kristen is now feeling suspicious about Colton since he was able to get everyone to vote Tiffany out, seeing that it turned out that she was indeed a faithful. Now, just as they're speculating on who could have been red-rummed, the next group comes in and it's Michael, Jam Jam, and Ron. And baby, Candice said, Michael has 9 lives. He ain't going nowhere. Now, as soon as Ron stepped in, everyone was giving the silent treatment. It was so awkward because everyone thinks Ron is a traitor. So they get to discussing Colton being on The Bachelor and then him coming out as a gay man. And we see the next group coming in and it's Maura, Lisa Rinna, and Steven. So now the persons left are Johnny, Tara, and Money Exchange. Now I'm trying to figure out why they're pounding on that door. But once the door opens, we see it's Johnny and Tara, which means that Money Exchange was murdered, which startles everyone, including me, because I didn't see that coming at all. I thought they would have picked Johnny, but picking Money makes sense since they mentioned Lisa Rinna's name. Now we see the deliberation, and like I thought, it was because Money Exchange did mention Lisa Rinna's name as a traitor, and so they decided to go with Money Exchange. Everyone raises a glass for Money, and of course they're sad that Money was murdered. Alan walks in and tosses Money's pictures away. We know that's the daily ritual in the morning, and he then lets them know that it's now mission time. He gives a clue that there's moisture ahead. So after breakfast, Kristen has a chat with Candice, Lisa, and Tara. Lisa appears to be sucking up to Kristen, in my opinion, telling her that she likes her. Kristen is saying that she's having a hard time between liking and trusting people, and that's kind of confusing to her. Lisa and Candice also agree with what Kristen said. Now, Kristen is saying that Ron and Michael's names are the 2 names floating around. Lisa then says she's going for Ron, and Kristen is asking her, well, why? And we only get to see her saying she has many reasons. And I'm just like, Lisa, you're going to have to say more than that. We need more. You need to talk more. You need to say more. You need to give what your reasons are, because then people are going to start feeling suspicious about you. And that's going to come up a little later. But anyways, Tara also shares her suspicion on Ron and how he was able to sway their votes each time. Again, bringing up how he did with Portia and doing the same with Maura, bringing up Maura's name out of nowhere. Now, in another side conversation between Michael, Natalie, Maura, and Rob, Michael's asking who they're thinking about, and Natalie says Ron, but Maura brought up how adamant Colton was about Tiffany and how Colton ended up being wrong. They're now saying They don't know why they listen to Colton, to which Michael suggests that Colton should take some heat because he is the ringleader, and that's also going to come up a little later as well. Now, here's where things get a little bit more interesting, in my opinion, because in this conversation between Ron, Mark, and Eric, Ron says he's suspicious of Michael and Dorinda being traitors. As to how Dorinda's name came up, it's a little bit crazy to me because his theory made absolutely no sense at all. He says it's all because Dorinda was down his throat at the previous round table, not allowing him to get one word in, and he now suspects that she's a traitor. And I'm just like, that doesn't make sense at all. So we see another side conversation between Colton, Candice, Christine, Mark, Jam Jam, and Maura. We know names are going to be thrown out there, so it's Michael and Ron's name being thrown out there. Colton is going in on why Ron should be banished. He's saying that he does nothing around the castle, he sucks at missions, but Christine kind of came to Ron's rescue, saying that he is a team player on these missions. Kristen thinks that she clocked Colton and she's telling Candice that she's quite certain that Colton is a traitor. So you see how everyone is just feeling suspicious about everybody at this point. It's now time for a mission. Alan is always serving looks as always. He welcomes them all and says that this isn't a fountain of youth, but it's the fountain of the faithfuls. He then explains the mission and says that around the castle are 8 missing statues, which they must find and place in the correct spot to add money to the prize pot. They must search through the fountain to find coins, which would reveal the location of the missing statues. Once all of the statues are placed in their right position, they must turn a wheel, and if successful, under 30 minutes, they add $60,000 to the prize pot. Of course, we know this mission cannot be so simple. There's always going to be a twist of some kind. So the big twist wasn't about the statues, it was about the shields being hidden throughout the challenge. If even one person took a shield, it guaranteed a murder that night. If no one took one, there would not be any murders happening at all. So the whole challenge came down to one question: do you protect yourself or do you trust the group? They must now get into groups of 4, and once that is decided, Alan says if just one statue isn't restored, there will be no money going into the prize pot. So they get to searching, and Kristen finds the first coin, and in her group it's also Rob, Maura, and Tara. They race off to find a statue. Johnny finally is getting the hang of these missions. He finds the next coin, and in his group it's Dorinda, Michael, Natalie, and Johnny, and they also race off to find the statue. Rob's group gets the statue, they insert the coin, and once they retrieve the statue, they notice a shield. They all decide as a team to not take the shield. Now Johnny's group also gets to the statue and notice a shield as well. Natalie was a little bit curious as to what the shield looks like, but they ultimately decide to not take the shield. Now I'm wondering, will that come back to bite Natalie in the behind? We're going to have to wait to see if that even happens. Now Mark finds the next coin, and his team, which comprises of Candice, Lisa, Colton, and of course Mark, they ran off to find the statue. Then we see the last group, which is Jam Jam, Steven, Eric, and Ron. They also find a coin. Mark's group find a statue and agree to not take the shield, and so does the last group. And so far they've retrieved 4 statues, but there's still 4 more missing. Johnny's group finds another statue, and so does the last group, which is Jam Jam's group. Michael finds the last coin, but we see a discussion with Colton's group. He has a suspicion that someone might have taken a shield. As to where that came from, I don't know. They do find a statue which was across a river. The statue was a little bit challenging to get, but they did successfully retrieve it. Once they pulled out the statue, they noticed that there were 4 shields. So they have a little bit of a discussion on whether or not the other teams took a shield, if they should take a shield. Colton felt a little bit tempted to take a shield, But I really hope he didn't, because he is in the midst of two traitors and he doesn't even know that. The final statue is found by Johnny's group, and of course, they also find four shields beneath the statue, and they too are also tempted to take the shields. But they all end up rushing to get those statues in place because the time was clicking, right? But they were successful. They placed all of the statues in its rightful position. They turned the wheel and successfully completed the mission. Then we saw the fountain started flowing with red water, which somehow signified blood. Now everyone gets back to the castle, and we know, of course, these discussions are going to continue. Ron walks into a room where Dorinda and Stephen are, and he's saying that he's 90% sure on two traitors, and he names Michael and Dorinda as those two traitors. Now, Dorinda was a bit taken aback and she's like, me? How? Like, how did I get into this? I've never voted for you before. Where is this coming from? But Ron is persistent that Dorinda is a traitor. So Colton, Rob, Natalie, Jam Jam, and Erica having lunch together. Colton throws a theory out that everyone Michael has voted on has been sent home besides Jam Jam, and so that makes him a traitor. Now, while they're having that discussion, Michael comes in. Ron is also there too, and Colton asks a very odd question. Does Alan stay in his outfit or does he change? This to me was a really weird question, but I know he was kind of fishing for evidence against Michael. But Michael starts to laugh and he says he doesn't know. Colton starts asking if he's making him uncomfortable because asking certain questions to a traitor would make them uncomfortable. Michael says, well, if you come after me tonight, you're going to mess up yourself. Colton says, well, that kind of sounds like a threat that a traitor would give. Michael tells Colton to humble himself because he was wrong about Tiffany and he should really take it down a notch. And I kind of agree with Michael, because choosing another wrong person is going to end up making him a target. So Colton needs to be careful about throwing people's names out there and going in so hard to get people to be voted off and turning out to be wrong. Now there's another group having dinner. Natalie carries the bone to them on what just went down in that conversation with Michael. Michael ends up walking into that room too. He says, if you'll pick my name, y'all are going to make a mistake. And people just started walking out of the room. You could tell that the people, they're fed up with Michael. And I think it's just because he's so obnoxious. They're probably going to vote for him to get banished. Now, we thought it was done, but baby, Rob said Michael is a traitor. And while he was saying that, Michael walks into the room and he's going off on Colton, calling him a bad ringleader because he thought Colton was the one who said his name, but actually it was Rob. But Colton wasn't backing down either. He's like, I'm ready for whatever Michael is bringing. It's now round table time and we know it's about to get heated. As always, everyone is just waiting for somebody to talk first. Candice asked if they're going to address the shouting earlier, and so Michael said, well, I can explain. And baby, y'all, Michael came with his thesaurus because the words he was dropping, I was just like, okay. But he said conniving, colluding, commiserating, Colton. Now, when he said commiserating, I'm like, commiserating? Michael, you sure that's the word you wanted to use? But Michael said, today y'all are about to learn about the real Michael, okay? He calls out the pattern from the night before and how Colton made Tiffany feel and ended up having her banished when she was a faithful. He said that Colton was the one chirping in everyone's ears about Tiffany and decided to do the same after the challenge with his name. So he's definitely saying that it's a pattern that Colton is having. Michael said he's pissed off, he's isolated and angry because of Colton, and no one would be better at keeping a secret than Colton. Now, he kind of insinuated that because Colton came out that he was gay, that he was in the closet for so long, at least, I don't know, I feel like that's how I read into it. And I also noticed that I wasn't the only one who understood his argument that way. But did y'all also read into it that way, or was I wrong? Was everybody else wrong? Because when he said it, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Drop in the comments on your thoughts on what Michael was saying. Do you agree with me on how I understood what he was saying, or did you see it in a different way? Anyways, Colton asked him if he thinks it felt good to hold on to a secret for 29 years. Michael denies that this is what he was saying or that he even insinuated that. Johnny kind of sides with, well, my understanding, and tells Michael that he cannot use that against someone. And so Michael is pressed to clarify what he meant, and he says that Colton's behavior gives traitor. Y'all, Michael was going in on Colton even after a few of them told him that he was going really low and he was giving some really low blows. He didn't care. He just kept going in. Now, I didn't know this would come up, but y'all, Rob said, excuse me, Michael, I think you're using commiserating in the wrong context. Because actually, it means to feel sympathy for someone. Michael's like, no, it doesn't, but actually, it does. Rob was right. That's what the word means. And I'm just like, Michael, can you relax, please? Like, seriously, relax. Colton said that he was wrong about Tiffany, but it wasn't just him that kind of solidified his decision to vote Tiffany out. Now he throws his theory out that everyone Michael has voted for so far has been murdered except Jam Jam. And so Michael says, well, you think I'm the one calling the shots? So then Ron jumps in and says to Michael, well, I think you're the mouthpiece for Dorinda. Now Dorinda and Ron are going at it. He says that she's a traitor and she calls him a housewives hunter. And personally, I don't know why Ron was going so hard on Dorinda. It didn't make sense. And I think that may have rubbed a few people the wrong way because Dorinda is really unproblematic, right? Candice now butts in and says she's voting for Ron and brings up the whole Portia scenario. And y'all, I'm about tired of this Portia scenario. Can we move on, please? Now, at this point, everyone is just about fed up with Michael. They're tired of being tired of Michael because he's arguing with any and everyone who calls him out on his behavior. Now, Alan says that is enough. Enough talking. It's time to vote. And to no surprise, Michael got the most votes and was banished from the game. Now, y'all, at the Circle of Truth, Michael is asked to reveal whether he's a traitor or a faithful, and he let them have it. Let me tell you, he said, y'all just voted out. When I tell y'all, that was the most extra, that was the most extra speech I've ever heard. Michael said, y'all just voted out the best looking, the smartest, and dopest faithful. Y'all, he said, y'all better clock that, okay? And he walked out. Now, if that wasn't enough, Alan then says that someone might be at risk tonight because he did give them a chance to stop any murder from happening, but they're going to have to find out at breakfast if anyone was murdered. Now, no one wasn't really sad. I think everyone was just really happy that they're about to get some peace and quiet in the castle now that Michael is gone. Ron's happy he survived this round table, but he's also now second guessing himself since Michael turned out to be a faithful. Now we see a discussion between Christine, Eric, and Mark. Eric says he feels confused about the entire game. He doesn't know what's happening at this point. Kristen says she feels like Colton is a traitor, and Mark kind of confirms it by saying that they need to watch Colton. They need to watch his every move. We see another discussion with Candice, Tara, and Johnny. Johnny is also saying Colton's name. I had a feeling that this was going to end up happening because Colton is bringing on so much attention to himself. Now, Colton is in the room with Maura, Rob, Jam Jam, and Dorinda, and he says that Lisa Rayner was awfully quiet during the round table, and that's just not like her. Maura says that she's never really heard Lisa say anyone's name, and now Colton is suggesting that Lisa might be a traitor and points out that to him the biggest red flag with Lisa was voting Portia out. Now, I never really understood why Lisa did that. But anyways, Jam Jam says she gave the best description of what went down in the woods. And Colton said, well, that's because she got to see it 3 times, and y'all, he might be onto Lisa. But will that backfire and put the target on his back? Because Colton has been so loud and so wrong so many times. Of course, he's not wrong about Lisa, but who's going to know that, right? So it's now bedtime and everyone heads to bed except the traitors. They get to meeting and immediately they discuss if anyone took a shield. They said they didn't, but Rob fills Lisa in that Colton is coming for her and spills all the tea on what Colton said about Lisa. Now, that's where the episode ends, and I cannot wait to see what happens next because I want to know if somebody was red rum. I'm really trying to find out because I have a feeling that someone did take a shield. But tell me all of your thoughts, y'all. Do you think anyone took a shield? How do you feel about this episode? Are you also happy that Michael was banished? Please share all of your thoughts with me on episode 5 of the Traitors USA season 4, and I'll meet y'all in the comment section. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more recaps like this one, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.